welcome everyone. So here is what we are going to do from this episode onwards. What is happening is it's very difficult for me to keep a track. Like, let's say if I have to make a video, all right, then it is required of me to finish the whole chapter and then make that video. But chapters in this book, okay, the book itself, you can look at it. Okay, the book itself is pretty thick, okay, and the chapters themselves, they sometimes run into more than 50-60 pages each chapter. So I will not the title of this videos from this video onwards will simply be episodes, as in you know episode 1, episode 2, that way. So this video is going to be episode 1. Okay, all the previous episodes in this series of ancient history of Bharat, we have named them according to the chapters in this book, and hence I had to also name some of the videos with part 1, part 2, part 3 within the same chapter, because it took me 3 or 4 days to finish that chapter. Okay, so right from this video onwards, the series remains the same. It's just the nomenclature that will change. I will simply put a title on the video as episode 1, then the name of the series, that is the ancient history of Bharat. Okay, so in the previous video we discussed some of the clans. Okay, both the Buddhist and the Jain literature, they do corroborate these things, that prior to the state of Magad, okay, when it acquired prominence in the history of Bharat, prior to that there were 16 kingdoms. Okay, and these kingdoms existed, and the names have been given both in the Buddhist literature and in the Jain literature as well. Okay, now I would definitely say that yes, there is no discrepancy per se between the names, but yes, there are some variations between the names as well. Okay, so for the skeptics out there who are watching these videos and trying to poke holes and pick out mistakes from my videos, so yes, I would definitely concede that between the Buddhist and Jain literatures there are no inconsistencies. That is an incorrect word, but yes, okay, there are some variations in names. Okay, at some points, and largely in this book, RC Majumdar has stressed a lot upon the Buddhist literature and not the Jain literature, although both of them have an equal degree of veracity. Alright, so in the previous video we ended at Surasena. Okay, next one is the Aswaka. It sounds familiar to the Ashwa. Okay, I guess Ashwa means horse. The Aswaka, it may be identified with the kingdom of Askenoi of the Greek writers in the Swat Valley. Okay, now there is some significant confusion about the exact location of the Aswaka kingdom. Okay, some of the scholars, they say it existed in the Swat Valley. Swat Valley is in the current day Pakistan. Okay, so there is some degree of confusion regarding the location of this place. Some of the scholars, they fix it in the Swat Valley, that is current day Pakistan. Others, okay, in this very same book, on the next page, on page number 13, the Asaka country of the Buddhists, therefore, whether it be identical with Maharashtra or located on the Godavari, lay outside the pale of the Madhya Desa. Okay, so there is significant confusion, because some scholars say that it is it was located in the current day Swat Valley. Others say it is located largely in the region of Maharashtra and in the Godavari basin. Okay, next up is Avanti. Okay, Ujjaini was the capital of Avanti. Ujjain as in the the seat of Mahakaleshwar. Okay, so yeah, Western Bharat, India is not the right name. It was one of the 4 great monarchies in Bharat when Buddhism arose, the other 3 being Kosala, Vatsa and Magad. Okay, so when the Buddhism started gaining popularity, okay, there were 4 monarchies, and those were Avanti, Kosal, Vatsa and Magad. Okay, the country or kingdom of Avanti may be taken to have corresponded roughly to modern Malwa, Nimar, and adjoining parts of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, Vidisa lay on the road to Ujjaini. Dasarna has been mentioned in the Mahabharata as well as in the Meghaduta of Kalidas and is generally identified with Vidisa or Bilsa region of Madhya Bharat. The Mahabharata also speaks of Avanti and Mahishmati as two different countries. So I would say even the epics, okay, the epics do have, some sort of a historical value, because these places, they have been mentioned in the epics, and they wouldn't mention these epics. Okay, so for the first time, okay, I know that there are multiple theories out there that who exactly wrote Mahabharat, how did that person come to know about Mahabharat, is Mahabharat a fiction or not? Okay, all these questions are there. Okay, I'm not speaking about them. All I'm saying is, if these epics, okay, if these epics mention the names of certain places, and those places exist to this very day, to the very day on which this video is being recorded, that is the 17th of December, what does that tell you? Okay, this is for you to think, for you to ponder about. But yes, so just to summarize the point that I made is, largely the history of this period of Bharat is based on the Buddhist and the Jain literature. But for corroboration, RC Majumdar also uses Mahabharat. Okay, yes, it has some degree of historical relevance. Avanti was an important center of Buddhism. So even in the central part of Bharat, that is the Madhya Pradesh of current day Madhya Pradesh, okay, it was one of the centers of Buddhism. Next up is Gandharv. Denotes the region comprising modern districts of Peshawar, Purushpura, and Rawalpindi. Okay, so these are current names, contemporary names. They have been forcefully applied to these areas because a group of not even a group, a cabal of wannabe politicians and national leaders thought in 47 that it would be prudent to concede, to capitulate to the demands of Muslim League, and hence they vivified this holy land of ours. Okay, so to get my point across, okay, they did not have the mandate of the people. Okay, the people who conceded, or people who agreed to the idea of partition, they could not, in any given way, in any possible way, they could not claim to speak on behalf of the mass of the population. Okay, so that is again a whole different debate for a different video, but I'm just keep putting my position out there. So yeah, Gandharva again, it's the capital of Takshashila. Okay, Takshashila was a center of trade and an ancient seat of learning. Okay, Gandharva sometimes also included Kashmir. The 5th century, Kashmir. Isn't the popular narrative that the land of Kashmir has always been, Islamized? Okay, like this is 2000 years ago. Something for you to think about. You know how these narratives work. They change the entire dynamic, so you cannot claim it to be yours. Okay, I guess somebody else has also said this in public domain very beautifully. There might be videos out there on the internet, you can look it up. But yes, okay, there are some Greek authors, some Miletus. It's not clear, Hecatius of Miletus, whoever this person is. He also mentions Kaspapiros, Kasyapura, that is Kashmir. Alright. So Islam is a very recent phenomenon in Kashmir. Give or take, I would say, how much can we say? 400 years? 300, 400 years. That's it. Next up is Cambodia. Cambodia included in the Uttarpatha, generally associated with Gandharva. The Hazara district of the Northwest Frontier Province. Now we are talking about Afghanistan. Okay, it's a shame. It is utterly disgraceful for the state of Bharat to exist when, okay, a country, okay, Cambodia we are talking about, in 2000 years ago, when it existed as an independent kingdom, where in the northwest frontier province, which we today call as Afghanistan. Okay, so the pagans, the Aryan nationals of Bharat, they have completely wiped out from that land. Okay, so the state of Bharat, like I said, it is utterly disgraceful for the state of Bharat to witness this phenomenon. Yeah, so Hazara district of the northwest frontier province and probably extending as far as the Kafiristan. During the earlier period of the Kambojas were ruled by kings, but in Kautilya's time they had non-monarchical form of Sangha type of government. Like I said, it was a mixture. All right, the regal power or the royal power has never been hereditary in nature, although with perversion of time. Okay, as and when, because the human nature and the human character is prone to corruption. Okay, due to the because when you get used to power, I would say these kings, okay, it requires a high degree of a morality and a character to resist the changes that exposure to power brings to one's character. Okay, I hope that made sense. But yes, okay, the rule, you know the kings, they were never hereditary, they were never meant to be hereditary. Yes, on the very next page, RC Majumdar has a different section for it. The autonomous clans, okay? And the first and the foremost was the Sakya clan, the clan to which, Buddha, Gautam Buddha belonged. In fact, for Buddha, I would use the title Mahatma. He indeed was a Mahatma, okay? But for Mohandas Gandhi, I would not use that epithet. So yes, Mahatma Buddha. Gautam Buddha was a Sakya by birth, but politically it was of no great power because they did not have a king. It was run by a confederacy. It was a republican state, meaning they had a council where people gathered and decisions, or largely the important decisions, were taken by unanimity or majority, I would say. Okay. Sakyas claim to belong to the Solar race and the Ikshvaku family. The Sakyas possessed a number of towns besides the capital, and 9 of them are specifically mentioned in the Buddhist texts. Okay, so I would say yes. There is a lot for the Aryans to thank Buddha. Why? Because since Buddha was there, it compelled people to write down a few things, and so hence those people were compelled to write down things. We have records. We have some records of those era, okay, in the form of cannons and whatnot. Okay, so thank you, Buddha. Next up is, it says that there were close to 80,000 families, Sakya families. A Buddhist text records in detail one such quarrel, in the course of which Koliyas taunted the Sakyas with the custom prevalent among them of marriage with sisters. Okay, so there is one of the particular incident that the Buddhist literature mentions where another tribe or another clan of Koliyas, they taunted the Sakyas with, related to that, you guys marry your own sisters. I guess that must have been a prevalent practice during that age. Okay. Next up are like the Lichavis and the Sakyas, okay, possessed a central popular assembly as its supreme governing body, and both young and old were members of it and took part in the discussion of affairs of the state. Okay, like I said, there was a council where elders and young people, they sat, discussed, and deliberated upon what important decisions were to be taken, and finally took a decision. Okay. The misrule or tyranny of the king must be regarded as the principal of these causes, and this proves that neither the development of royal power nor the theory of divine right of kings could altogether extinguish the innate strength of popular element and the natural desire of people to rule themselves. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is an argument that largely in all the if you look across other parts of the world, the justification that usually these royal families gives, that they are divinely ordained by God to rule over them. Okay, but that idea, that concept so far does not exist, okay, in the Sakya clan at least. Okay, so this is something that you must consider, as in how exactly was this clan still existing? If there is a clan that is in the midst of all the other monarchies surrounding it, wouldn't one king feel one day, to hell with this council, let us overtake this entire clan and tribe, and merge it with us? This is something that you must think about. How did they coexist? There had to have been some degree of friction, some degree of conflict, because they could, Sakyas, even being a republican state, they would have some mechanism of self-defense, or assertive self-defense, as I like to call it. Because if you have an aggressive neighborhood, you need an assertive self-defense. There is one very important line on page number 17 that he writes is, political freedom is the great nursery of freedom of thought. Okay. So political freedom meaning you must be given freedom to think, okay, radically, to be blasphemous, okay, because in order to be innovative, in order to cross that barrier of evolution, to bring some radical change into the society, you have to think in a blasphemous way. You cannot keep venerating old institutions and everything, and still hope of changing things for the betterment. Alright, now we move on to chapter number 2, the rise of Magadhan imperialism. Magad, as you know, and I would say generally all of you all might be aware of this place that goes by the name of Magad, that is usually credited with the title of the first widespread monarchy that Bharat had. Okay, earlier there were kingdoms, I'm not denying, there were Aryan clans and Aryan kingdoms that were flourishing on this holy land, but it was Magad, okay, that had the capacity and the ability to unite all these kingdoms, sometimes by force, sometimes by matrimonial alliances and all the other techniques that were used in those ages. So let's see what RC Majumdar writes. The kingdom of Magad, to make a successful bid for supremacy and establish its suzerainty according to the unanimous testimony of different sources. Okay, there are 3 sources for Magadhan history. Number 1 is the Brahminical sources, another one is the Buddhist sources, and the last one is the Jain sources. Okay. Here he mentions in the very beginning, that we propose to treat the history of Magad on the basis of the Buddhist texts. Okay, here the largely the history of Magad is based on Buddhist text in this book, but there are other sources, like I mentioned, 3 sources through which you can learn the history of Magad. So first of all comes the name of Bimbisara. I guess a lot of you might already have be aware of who exactly was Bimbisara. Let's see. According to Mahavamsa is another is one of the Buddhist texts that has survived. Bimbisara was 15 years old when he was anointed king by his own father, and his own father made Bimbisara king. So that would it's pretty much clear he was not the founder of this dynasty, Bimbisara. The Mahavamsa does not state the name of Bimbisara's father. There is no name of Bimbisara's father. This text of Mahavamsa. Okay. Bimbisara belonged to the great Naga dynasty as distinguished from the Sisu Naga. Okay. But Ashwagosha's Buddha Charita mentions, okay, there is another book, Buddha Charita, that was written by Ashwaghosh. Okay, that book mentions Bimbisara was a scion of the Haryanka Kul. Okay, so one part of the Buddhist literature mentions that Bimbisara belonged to the Naga dynasty. Another Buddhist literature written by Ashwagosha mentions that Bimbisara belonged to the Haryanka dynasty. So this is something that Like I said, you cannot simply just dismiss this. There could be some link between the Naga dynasty and the Haryanka rule. We never know. Okay, so we cannot just dismiss this as a conjecture or a contradiction. There is something that we don't know. According to the according to this book, Bimbisara had 500 wives. He might be very prosperous. Okay, he was known for keeping matrimonial alliances. Bimbisara, his first capital was Rajgriha. Okay, he had a priest, okay, as his advisor, and the name of that priest is written over here as Mahagovinda. Okay, he was the person who planned the entire city of Rajgriha. Sorry, the name of that person is Mahagovind. The gate of the city was closed in the evenings, after which even the king was not admitted in. This is something that is surprising. I'm sure there might be many divergence to these rules, but it's mentioned over here that the gate policy was followed very strictly. Bimbisara's father was defeated by Brahmadatta, king of Anga. It was probably to avenge this defeat that Bimbisara led a campaign against Anga. This is something that might have started or might have ignited this idea into Bimbisara's head that they need to, reunite all the other Aryan clans. Okay, but that was the first kingdom that Bimbisara attacked, that is Anga. Why did he attack the kingdom of Anga? Because the king of Anga, that is Brahmadatta had murdered Bimbisara's father. So to exact revenge, he conquered Anga. With the conquest of Anga and the peaceful acquisition of Kasi began the expansion of Magad. Like I said, the lion had tasted the blood. So now that Bimbisara had realized the strength of waging wars and uniting kingdoms, okay, he had this dream of creating an empire. Okay. So Bimbisara's father, like you said, with the conquest of Anga and peaceful acquisition of Kasi began that expansion of Magad, which was ultimately destined to embrace nearly the whole of Bharat. Bimbisara maintained friendly intercourse even with distant powers. The embassy of Pukusati, king of Gandhara, and Bimbisara's marriage with the Madra princess has been referred. Okay, like I said, I'm sure there might have been people in his court to guide him, to advise him, and whatnot. But yes, he was a shrewd ruler. Okay, he maintained the embassies of other kingdoms in his empire as well. Bimbisara's kingdom included in it a number of republican and semi-independent communities, the chief of which was called Rajkumara. Okay, there were other communities amongst the inside the kingdom of Bimbisara. Okay. Next up is so there are also some details about the administrative professionals. The people under which the villages functioned were called gramakas. One very interesting thing that I discovered from this book is, okay, the important officials at the headquarters. Okay, like I said, the villages they were headed by gramakas. Okay, so if there were some villages in the kingdom of Bimbisara, they would be headed by gramakas. Now these gramakas would definitely report back to somebody. Now guess who those somebodies were? Okay, so the kingdom of Bimbisara had three wings of the state. Okay, you heard it right. Yes, only three wings. Number one was executive, number two was judicial, and number three was military. Okay, there was an absence of legislature. Does this mean something? Does this not mean something? That we will discover as we read, as we further read and explore this book. But there were only three wings of the state. Okay, which were those three wings? Number one, the executive. Number two, judiciary. Number three, military. There is no legislature. And if you sit and contemplate, executive in a way is legislature. Okay. Now here is where things start getting interesting. Both Jainism and Buddhism claim Bimbisara as their follower. Okay, so the concept of having, you know, now I don't really really like to use that word, that is religion, because to, you know, describe the Aryan way of life by this inadequate word of religion is grossly, you know, incorrect. But still, for the lack of a better word, we will use that word, that is religion. Okay, so the concept of state religion has always been there. You know why? Because it really matters what, you know, to what faith or to what belief system does the king subscribe. Okay, so what is intriguing over here is both the major sects during that time, okay, Buddhism and Jainism, both of them claimed that Bimbisara had converted to their fold. Okay, because it mattered. Whatever faith or belief system that the king subscribed to, his subjects were expected to do the same. Alright. So like I said, there are also instances where he met Buddha. Okay. He meets Mahatma Buddha. He also meets Mahavira as well. Okay. According to the Buddhist tradition, Bimbisara lost his life at the hands of his son Ajatashatru, who was instigated to the crime by the Buddha's wicked and jealous cousin Devadatta. Okay, there is this one tradition, Buddhist tradition, where they have this story about who exactly killed Bimbisara. So the person who killed Bimbisara was the jealous cousin of Buddha himself, who goes by the name of Devadatta. Okay, although on the first attempt he failed, on the second attempt he managed to lock Ajatashatru for life, and he finally, you know, takes poison and kills himself, Bimbisara. Yeah. Next up in line for succession to Magad, or the throne of Magad, was Ajatashatru. Okay. Ajatashatru, he started off his career with a war against Kosala. Okay. Why there is no mention? The king Prasenjit, who could not, you know, understand the inhumanity of Ajatashatru, who had killed his father and indirectly also widowed the princess of Kosala. Okay, so Bimbisara was married to a princess of Kosala. Now that Ajatashatru had killed Bimbisara, that princess, that girl who was from Kosala, was widowed. Okay, this gave a motive to Prasenjit, who could not stand the death of her husband and died of grief. Even the princess of Kosala, she also died of grief. Okay. King Prasenjit thereupon revoked his gift of Kasi. Remember, Bimbisara got into a matrimonial alliance with Prasenjit to gain the kingdom of Kasi. Okay. So now that Bimbisara was dead and so was Kosala's princess, so it made no sense to still adhere to this contract of dowry. So Prasenjit, he took back Kashi. Okay. And there was a war between both the states, Magad and Kasi. Ajatashatru was entrapped in an ambush and had to surrender with his whole army to Prasenjit. In the end, the peace was concluded between the two by Prasenjit restoring to Ajatashatru his liberty, army and disputed village of Kashi, and even giving his daughter Vajira in marriage to him. So that was, I would say, Ajatashatru might have been a very good negotiator. So even after, you know, getting defeated in a war with Prasenjit, he was able to gain back the village of Kashi, and as well he got a daughter in marriage. Okay. So Ajatashatru, even he also expanded the horizons, okay, of the state. On the eve of this great conflict, which created a first-class political sensation in the country, even the Buddha detached. Okay. So yes, Ajatashatru, he also managed to expand the horizons of the Magadhan Empire. Okay. That's it. That's all for this video in the series of Ancient History of Bharat. Okay. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.